Hey there, my name is Ryan Whitley, and I'm an Episcopal priest in the Diocese of Southwest Florida, where I have the privilege of serving as rector of St. Thomas's Church in St. Petersburg. Around here, I'm known for my love of horror fiction. I founded and led a horror fiction book club for 5 years. I wrote horror fiction reviews for my website, and I host a podcast with 2 friends that explores horror fiction from around the turn of the 20th century. So naturally, I'm drawn to the theme for this year's Advent podcast series, fear. In 1987, David G. Hartwell published an anthology of horror fiction called The Dark Descent. Today, it is a seminal work that belongs on even the most casual fan's bookshelf. Hartwell's introduction alone is worth the price of admission. In that introduction, he identifies 3 streams of horror fiction: the moral allegorical, the psychological metaphor, and the fantastic. For our purposes here, I want to focus on the first and last categories as ways to think about approaching the sacred stories of Advent. Stories that function within the moral allegorical stream are almost always supernatural stories. Advent is no different. It is about the inbreaking of a divinity into our world. That is, by definition, beyond the natural, and therefore supernatural. English Catholic priest Ronald Knox once said, "Our Lord's coming must be regarded as an invasion of the natural by the supernatural world." This sentiment would later be echoed many times by contemporary Episcopal priest and theologian Fleming Rutledge. Hartwell goes on to say that these stories particularly are, quote, often written and read by lapsed Christians who have lost their firm belief in good, but still have a discomforting belief in evil. If that's true, then these types of stories function as a gate of sorts. And in that gate, Hartwell suggests, sit folks who struggle with belief and are on their way out. But I want to suggest that it is equally as likely a place to find people who struggle with belief and are on their way in. This is why you can use Stephen King novels as the basis for an Inquirer's class and fill the room. People want to know not only about how there is evil in the world, which accords with their experience, but about how good overcomes it, which they sadly don't see as often. But that's literally what Advent is heralding, isn't it? From John's prologue, "And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." The third stream in Hartwell's analysis is the fantastic. And what drives these stories, he says, is, quote, ambiguity as to the nature of reality. At least as far as we understand it, the way a new human comes into the world involves a biological process that combines elements provided by both a male and a female adult. But Mary, who was terrified by an angel sometime back in March, has a different experience. And thus ambiguity as to the nature of reality is introduced to the story of God's incarnation. Her experience of terror can be best described by a philosophical term introduced in 1757 by Irish philosopher Edmund Burke, who wrote about an idea he called the sublime. The sublime, in short, is a feeling both terrifying and desirable, combining the twinned ecstatic experiences of dread and beauty. Burke wrote, quote, "The passion caused by the great and sublime in nature, when those causes operate most powerfully, is astonishment. And astonishment is that state of the soul in which all its motions are suspended with some degree of horror." Did not Mary experience all of this when she said to the angel Gabriel, "How shall this be?" Burke would go on to provide several additional categories for understanding the sublime. Listen to these: power, obscurity, vastness, infinity, magnificence, light, suddenness. He is describing the sublime, and he is describing God. 19th century Danish theologian Søren Kierkegaard would pick up on Burke's themes of the sublime when he wrote his famous essay on the binding of Isaac's story found in Genesis 22. He called his essay Fear and Trembling, after Philippians 2:12, where Paul says, "Continue to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling." In the essay, he described how no previously known philosophical category could explain Abraham's actions, and thus must be attributed to a new category, faith, which he says is the highest of passions. So, faith and fear, terror and beauty, all go together in some really exciting ways. It is at their intersection that the second person of the Trinity condescended to become human as Jesus of Nazareth, born of Mary. Faith and fear, terror and beauty are all characteristics of Advent, but only two of them have really been popularly explored. Fear, terror, and the sublime are all hallways this podcast series is inviting us to walk down together this Advent, and I couldn't imagine a more perfect time. There is a chill in the air. The light fades quickly at the end of the day, and so we huddle closer together against the dark. If you have struggled with faith, maybe you recognize some of these feelings I've been talking about. Know that you are not alone, and that this way of exploring the divine mysteries is not only valid, but perhaps even pioneering. Others of you, perhaps, are firm in your faith. But what wonders and new discoveries await you through the sublime veil that you have thus far trembled before? There's a few of us who like to sit in this gateway, and I hope that you'll come and find us. We'd love the company. God bless you this Advent.
This has been a production of Trinity Episcopal Cathedral in Portland, Oregon. Music for this podcast was performed by James Walton. For more information about Trinity and our community, go to www.trinity-episcopal.org.